Welcome to 20 Minutes Self-Development with me, your host, Tam Dillon. 20 Minutes Self-Development, the podcast that's all about focused, effective self-development, one tool at a time. In each episode, I'll be introducing you to a specific practice or technique, and I'll be diving into why it matters, how it works, and how you can integrate it seamlessly into your daily life. In just 20 minutes, we'll get to the heart of personal growth and insights that make meaningful change feel both accessible and achievable. Let's get into today's episode. Hey, and welcome to this week's episode of 20 Minute Self-Development with me, your host, Tam Dillon. So today I want to unpack something that really doesn't get enough attention in the self-help, self-development, self-growth space. And that's the way self-development can quietly and sometimes unconsciously turn into self-obsession. So the personal growth space is filled with tools and teachings, books, programs, masterclasses, you name it, it's out there. And they can all be incredibly helpful. Like, don't get me wrong, there is some amazing content out there. But when you've been doing this work for a while, it can start to feel like there's always one more wound to heal, one more pattern to break, one more version of yourself to strive for. And if you're not careful, what started as a genuine desire to grow can morph into this constant feeling of never quite feeling good enough. So let's explore how to stay committed to your personal development, but from a place of care and clarity, not self-rejection or endless striving. Let's start by naming the problem. And the problem is when growth starts to feel like a burden. And if you've been in this space for a while, you've probably experienced this at some point. You begin to notice patterns in your behavior. You're more aware of your thoughts. You're listening to podcasts, and probably ones just like this one. You're maybe doing the journaling, maybe you're meditating, maybe you're going for therapy, maybe you signed up for a yoga class. And at first it feels liberating. Like you're finally understanding yourself, like you're meeting yourself for the first time. It's amazing. But then this really funny thing happens. The more aware you become, the more things you start to feel like you need to work on. Your need to fix list suddenly becomes a whole lot longer. It's like you know yourself really well and you're like, oh damn, there's a whole lot of stuff I got to fix over there. And that inner voice starts to sound way less like curiosity and way more like a critic. And instead of observing your behavior with compassion, you begin to analyze it like it's a fault line. And instead of celebrating growth, you're cataloging everything you still haven't fixed. You might even feel like you're falling behind. Everyone else is evolving faster, they're healing quicker, they're becoming more aligned. And here you are just somehow lagging. And you feel guilty for resting. You question your worth when things feel hard. And you start wondering if you're ever going to arrive at this imaginary finish line of wholeness. You're like, where's the end of this race, and where is my trophy? Because I'm done, I'm tired, I want to be over this race. Let's move on to something else. And this is what we would call self-help fatigue. And it's more common than people realize. So how do we shift out of that without throwing the whole thing away? Let's not throw the proverbial baby out with the bathwater here. How do we return to a healthier relationship with our growth and our self-development? Because there's nothing wrong with striving to be better versions of ourselves, but we want to maintain a healthy relationship with that. At some point we need to reach the proverbial finish line. And first we need to remember what self-development is really about. And it's not about fixing what's broken, because nothing is broken. It's not about chasing a flawless, perfect version of yourself, because we will never be perfect, and that is okay. It's about refining your relationship with yourself. It's about returning to your core. It's about returning back to you, who you are on the authentic level. This is the core of self-development. When you're doing self-help, self-growth, self-development, spiritual work, anything that is deep and self-related, you're working back to, well, the self. So it really isn't about fixing anything that's broken. It's about returning back to something, and that something, well, is you. And when we approach growth from the belief that we're inherently lacking or that we're flawed, the process becomes one of resistance. We're always trying to become someone else. We're always trying to become this version of who we think we should be or who the world tells us we should be. And what happens is when we approach growth from the belief that we're already whole, the process becomes one of unfolding instead of one of grasping or striving or reaching. Instead it's just this natural flow process of just unraveling and going and rolling and flowing smoothly as it's supposed to. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me and how do I fix it? You start asking, what's ready to be seen more clearly? What parts of me are waiting to be welcomed back in? So instead of coming from this, where am I messed up and what do I need to fix? Like you're a broken down house. Like, stop that and ask yourself better questions. What's ready to be seen more clearly? What parts of me are waiting to be welcomed back in? Know thyself. Yes, I'm going to quote the old philosophers because some of them knew what they were talking about. So that small shift in orientation really changes everything. And here's something I often remind my clients. Growth doesn't always look like doing. Sometimes real growth is in the pause, in the resting, in the moments where you allow yourself to be with what is without needing to improve it. Like, here you are, you've arrived. Ta-da! Here's your trophy. Now stop and rest. Like you've arrived. There's nothing else to do. Self-development is a cycle. It has seasons. There's seasons of insight where things click, where you're connecting the dots. Then there's the seasons of integration where you let those insights settle in and reshape your life in subtle ways. When we're doing self-development or any kind of self-work, we're working on all the layers of the self, and there's integration and work happening on the subtle layers. So energetically, emotionally, mentally, physically, authentically. And sometimes we're not even aware of the work that's going on. Sometimes we're just like, well, I didn't feel that, obviously nothing happened, but yet this huge energetic shift is going on inside of you that you're just currently not aware of because you're looking perhaps for emotional signs or physical signs. And when you're letting these seasons of integration, you let these insights settle in and help you reshape your life. It's necessary, but we need to have both the action and the integration. We can't always be doing. We're going to burn out. We're going to run out of steam. We're going to be like, I'm so sick of this. I'm doing the same process over and over, banging my head against the wall. We need to stop and integrate at some point. Summer needs to have winter. Winter needs to have summer. And then once we've integrated, we can pick up the momentum and we can take action once again because we have integrated and we know better what action to actually be taking. So the trouble here is our culture tends to overvalue the breakthroughs and it undervalues the stillness that follows the breakthroughs. So our culture is all like, unpack yourself and do the work and there's always one more thing and you'll never be perfect and you always got to strive to be better, and it becomes like a competition with the self. Like, why would you want to make your self-help competitive. Like, no, competition does not fit into this space. Like, take that away. Stop asking for your trophy and your medal, because there is no finish line. There is a line of where you hit that point of integration, and you must stop, integrate, and then continue to take action from there. It's cyclical. If you're always chasing the next transformation, the next release, the next healing, the next medicine, I have seen it. I've seen people get on the medicine train. And here I'm talking about holistic medicines, not like over-the-counter pharmaceuticals. And people are like, maybe I just need to take one more mushroom, or one more ayahuasca, or one more DMT. Like, hey, maybe you need to just stop and integrate the work you've already done. So if you're constantly chasing these things, you're never giving yourself the chance to simply become the person those shifts are making room for. So like, you're shifting and you're clearing and you're cleansing and you're flushing and you're doing all these things. For what? For what purpose? You've got to have some reason to it. You've got to integrate so that you can shift to where it is that you're trying to shift to. If you're constantly doing the same thing, you're just spinning your wheels in the mud, right? So what does healthy self-development look like? What does it feel like when you're doing this in a way that's actually supportive? So here's a couple of my thoughts. And let's look at the first one, and that is focus on integration. Not just the information, because when you're getting the breakthroughs and you have the aha moments, there's all this amazing, magical, wonderful information. You're just like, oh, that's amazing, but we get caught up in the information, and we don't focus on, integrating that information. We're just like, oh, this information is amazing. And that's it. Do something with it. Integrate it. You don't need to take 10 more courses or collect 30 more tools. Sometimes the next step isn't more input. It's sitting with what you already know, practicing it, allowing it to take root. You have done an amazing, beautiful course in yoga, and you're like, cool, what else about yoga can I learn? What other books are there? And like stop. Stop that, integrate it, and start to practice it and start to work with it. And so you will add more knowledge on naturally as you progress with your process. So what else can we look at? Treat growth as nourishment, not punishment. My goodness, the amount of people, and hey, I've done it, where I've like looked at self-growth like, my goodness, this is a chore and a half. Like, Tam, you are a whole lot of work. Like, dang God, like you need to sort yourself out. And I did. I looked at self-help as, work and punishment, and like something you have to do this. You must do your homework. Otherwise you're never going to be a good version of yourself. And like we need not do that ourselves. Treat growth as nourishment, not punishment, because you're nourishing the self. Self-development should feel like an act of self-love, not a response to inadequacy. If a practice or technique is making you feel heavy or anxious or like you're falling apart, pause. Give yourself permission to do what feels kind, not just what feels productive. Self-help and self-development is maybe 30% productivity and, with a splash of discipline to ensure you keep going with it. And the rest is learning and processing and integrating and shifting. Don't get stuck in the productive aspect. Acknowledge your progress. Most of us are quick to notice what hasn't changed, but we're so slow to recognize what has. Look back. Where were you 6 months ago? What patterns have shifted? What's easier now? What have you survived, released, redefined? Don't rush past your own evolution. Honor it. Respect it. Be like, yes, look at you go. Like, gather medals along the way. Really, like, pay attention to where you come from, because if you're not acknowledging your progress, you're not going to see it. Because if we're not acknowledging something, we're not seeing it. So acknowledge it. And finally, let joy, rest, and pleasure be a part of your growth. As much as this is work, and a lot of it is deep work, and some of it is going to be hard work, but for the sake of balance, throw in the joy, throw in the lightness. Give yourself a rest. Integrate. Find pleasure in your self-development journey. Be an active part of that journey. I mean, the journey is your journey. Why would you not want to be in the front seat, being like, yes, let's drive down this road and see where it goes? You don't have to be doing the work every day to be living well. Sometimes the deepest healing comes from laughter, connection, beauty, and guess what? Silence. Like, so many people are awkwardly uncomfortable around silence. They're like, oh, that's not for me. But you would be amazed at what you can find in the spaces of stillness and silence. Growth isn't always visible. Some of the most profound inner shifts will happen quietly, and you're allowed to grow gently. Like, the rose doesn't force itself to, flower and be green and grow those thorns. And why haven't you grown your thorns yet? The rose is just blooming there, doing its thing. It's being the rose. It's not competing with the rose next door. It's not competing with how it grew last season. It's just like, hey, my flowers are popping up. It would be the same with yourself. There's nothing to rush towards, so be gentle. Here's a couple of things for you to sit with for this week. Is your growth practice helping you feel more whole or more broken? How is your growth practice making you feel? Have you been trying to become someone else, or are you returning to yourself? And what if the next phase of your development didn't look like doing more, but like being more present with who you already are? You are already becoming. You don't need to rush it. Thank you for spending this time with me today. If this episode resonates with you, please consider subscribing or sharing it with someone who you think might benefit from hearing this episode. You can find more self-development tools, as you know, at tamdillon.com. And as always, tune in next week for another 20-minute self-development. And remember that growth happens one small step at a time. Thanks for joining me for this week's episode of 20-Minute Self-Development. If today's insights were helpful, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode, where I'll share another practical tool or technique for your personal growth journey. If you're looking for more personalized support, my self-development coaching offers a space to explore these tools at a deeper level and tailors them to your unique needs. You can also visit the Tam Dillon Academy for all my courses and upcoming programs to also help you along your self-development journey. Until next time, keep showing up for yourself, and remember, growth happens one small intentional step at a time.